Hello. I kind of get it that my avatar is a little expired in the sense that it was Epiphany yesterday, and I should have changed it back to my pre-Christmas one, my pre-December one, and I actually have changed it, but it takes a while for it to all kick in. So I just wanted you to know that I'm aware of it, and I guess I'll talk about other peripheral things other than the subject of this stream. So enough of you can gather round and sit at my feet. I will give you time to arrive. I've had a reasonably busy morning. It was all a bit unexpected. The busyness was on Facebook. Maybe I could give you a link to the discussion, which is actually to do with one of my previous videos on it's called, the title of that stream on this secondary channel is the most powerful deity conceivable but a figment of the imagination of a flawed mortal. So I think it's getting heated, but one of my Facebook friends is kind of getting a little edgy in that he's saying, I don't want to go into all that again, you're just posting propaganda. And I say, well, what propaganda? And then he was talking about my logical flaws, and I was saying, what logical flaws? And what else was he saying that he doesn't want to argue about? I mean, basically it's just a hit and run job again. So people want to say, you're wrong, Claire, you're stupid, you're silly, you're mad. And, before I get a chance to ask, how am I silly? How am I mad? How am I wrong? How am I illogical? They run away, saying, well, I've just won this argument so many times before, I'm not going to go into it again with you. And I guess that would be when I would say, how did you win the argument last time? And then they'll say, you know. And I said, but I don't remember. And then they say, I don't care. I just don't have time to tell you anymore what you're wrong and how you're wrong. And I would say, oh, but the others don't know. And then they'd say, oh, but I don't care. Hello, Oswald Spengler. It's always nice when people arrive and post in the chat and, get this stream going a little bit. Now, you will know if you look in the description. I advise people to always look in the description because it has a few clues to what I will be talking about. And you will see in the description that I have posted the link to the stream of the video of Brutus the Saxon entitled Race and Culture Are Different Things. And he is posting in response to this row, I suppose, when Millennial Woes said that a black person born in England could be English, and this kind of made all the ethno-nationalists just fall about in rage and surprise and shock and disgust. So, go to Brutus. I'm actually happy to promote other people's streams because I think it is by helping others and whitening the debate, I ultimately help myself and the people I want to help. But of course, the people I want to help are the white people of the West, and by extension, the others who are not white and not Gentile and who are not Muslim. I want to help those people too, because the mess in their head is really, truly shocking, and the reluctance with which they regard the necessity of cleaning up the stuff and nonsense in their head is also shocking, because I think that they're just prevented from cleaning up the mess because they're in denial that what they have in their heads is complete nonsense. It's just stuff and nonsense, and they haven't organised it, and it's all a mess. And when you try to tell them, they get angry with you, like women, frankly. You know, it has been said that women regard any disagreement as a direct personal insult. You know, and I think men should be a bit better than that. They should be able to say, well, what did I say wrong? It's true, isn't it? It's logical what I just said. Or, you know, words to that effect. But they can't even do it now. They just run away, all these men. So it seems that they would rather remain in denial about the stuff and nonsense in their head than solve their problems. So I think it means that they are suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, which means they think that only their feelings matter, nobody else's does. They can ignore truth, logic and morality, particularly if the truth offends them. The logic leads to unwelcome conclusions, and morality just gets in the way of self-gratification. And not only does our political establishment suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, it appears, I think it's pretty conclusive now, that those who disagree with the political establishment are also suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. And this means that my associates suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. And you may well ask that I could be contaminated by the madness and silliness around me. Surely one is identified by one's associates. But I think by following the principles that I do follow, I tend to protect myself from their insanity and their nonsense. And that is why I point it out to them all the time, and that's why they go into a tailspin of rage and confusion and denial and avoidance of me and my streams. Now, Oswald Spengler asks a good question, and I will answer it before I get into my main theme. Well, actually, it is about it. So, what I was going to do is I'm going to post my Facebook link in which this discussion is taking place. So those of you who are old enough to reach out to me with your Facebook account can participate in that debate. So Oswald asks, I wonder if Greg Johnson termed Millennial Woes bisexual. I don't think it's so much Greg Johnson, but the culture. So you already know that Millennial Woes admitted in one of his streams that he had gone through a gay phase. And that's fine, we all go through, well, not all, but And there are people who dip in and out of it, and it's a culture. I'm not going to condemn everyone for having sex with people who are not our spouse. But what is important for us to know is that we're not supposed to. And even if we have to admit that this is not the way to restore the patriarchy, by saying it's okay to have sex with people not our spouse. We have to pay what is known as lip service to to the foundations of patriarchy, and patriarchy cannot exist without the practice of marriage and family values. So the way to negotiate this dichotomy between what is in theory a rule that everyone should obey and the actual practice of society, we'll just say that there's the law. Obviously not every breaker of the law will be apprehended, arrested, tried and punished, but we know what the law is, and we know what could happen to us if we break it. And this is what I propose a law should be, and all about secular Quranism. And I'm saying the principles of secular Quranism should be implemented in a one-party theocracy, and this would restore the patriarchy. And people are saying, no, we don't want that. We just want everything to change, but everything to stay the same, which is, of course, infantile. And this is a problem of matriarchy, really, that men find themselves having to behave like women, speak like women, and think like women in order to survive the oppression of it. Because if they, felt they challenged it, then they wouldn't get any sex. And what I'm trying to say is that men are primarily motivated by sex. So in a patriarchy, they would, and they will do anything for sex. And if the rules are that you can only have sex if you marry, then they'll do it and pay for the children of their wife. And if there are no rules, then they'll just rape and pillage. And if there are rules and they live in a matriarchy and they know that it is heresy and blasphemy to challenge and criticize a matriarchy, then they will shut up. And what is a matriarchy? A matriarchy is a society that says extramarital sex is okay. And this includes fornication, adultery, sodomy, and bestiality, and even paedophilia. So this is the society that the West lives in and is busily pumping out this moral sewage, and it's been called by the alt-right, actually, they're calling it Globo Homo. And of course, Globo Homo is all about turning our global village into Sodom and Gomorrah and inviting the same punishment. So back to Millennial Woes. What do the mainstream alt-right do? They cuck to the matriarchy by saying it's okay to be gay. You see, so my whole premise is that if you want to restore the patriarchy, and if you're nationalist, you would want to restore the patriarchy, because it is only under a patriarchy that you will produce enough good, strong men capable of defending the national interest. And nationalism, as I define it, is government in the national interest. And clearly, the alt-right are not able to discuss it with me. For the third year running, I'm not a millennial I'm not on it. I wasn't on Millennial, even though the topics that I discuss are exactly pertinent to what these anti-Semites, Islamophobes and racists should be talking about. They're deliberately not examining the meaning of words. And I can tell them that it is absolutely crucial that they debate what these words mean, because if they don't get it right, then everything will be wrong. And I can quote Confucius on this, and he has a doctrine of rectification of the names, and it's all about using words accurately and, well, in a way that a lawyer would use them. So my legal training would help, my interest in philosophy and politics would help. But the thing is, these alt-right YouTubers are too afraid of losing the argument to me, and that's why they don't really want to talk to me. I mean, yeah, it is technically true that every now and then they will talk to me and then they'll delete their stream when they lose the argument. So really, they are suffering from narcissism, from a surfeit of pride. They don't want to be seen to have lost the argument probably because of my sex and my race. But as Jesus once said, the truth will save you from error and disaster. And these alt-right YouTubers, they're always going on about the Jews and what they'd like to do to them if they could, because they did all these things to them. And I tried to explain to them why the Jews organize themselves better and why they are the world's most ancient and powerful tribe with their in-group preference, and why they are God's chosen people. But then they get so angry with me and say, oh, so you think they're God's chosen people? And I tell them I can't deny it because it says so in their scripture. And they'll say, well, I'm not Jewish, I don't believe in Jewish scripture. But what are they then, these alt-right YouTubers? If they're anything, I suppose they are post-Christian. Which means they're either atheist or pagan. Which is actually not a good lookout, because the decline and fall of the West is about the failure of its religion and political system. And for some reason, Millennial Woes won't talk about it with me. Because, you can maybe give me a few reasons why he won't. I think it's because he knows he's going to lose the argument. You see, I've never refused to talk to anyone at all about anything. They don't have to agree with me. I don't back down. I'm happy to be interrogated by a panel of witnesses. I don't back down, so it's not a question of cowardice on my part. So why do the Jews run circles around you? Because they have a better religion. It's as simple as that. what about the Muslims? How dare they arrive in the West and immediately be preferred to us and be treated better than us and be protected by our government, who are always hitting us on the head for daring to complain about these Muslim immigrants. But I keep telling you, it is religion that gives us the protection and dignity that we need. But then you say, but I don't believe in God. And I say, you don't have to believe in God. You just need to subscribe to a legal system that protects a patriarchy and would restore it. But then I get the answer, but we don't want to restore the patriarchy because we're not marriageable. No one wants to marry us, and if we agree with you that we can only have sex if we're married, then we won't get married. We won't get any nookie at all. But then I say that prostitution would be legalized, and so would brothels. But apparently you're all such cheapskates that you can't contemplate the idea of hiring a prostitute to minister to your sexual needs. So this is it. You prefer to complain about these fornicatresses who won't fornicate with you or marry you, and you're too cheap to hire prostitutes. So that's it. Do such men deserve a civilization? I don't think so. What about men who refuse to discuss these issues with me? I don't think they would deserve a civilization, and soon they won't have one. Oswald, he has actually. He spoke to roaming millennial or something like that. She's that Chinese American. Dr. Mengele says, restoring the patriarchy doesn't solve the Jewish problem. Why not? Tell me why not. Write me an essay. Do a stream, Dr. Mengele, and tell me why restoring the patriarchy won't solve the Jewish problem. Or why not just post it under the comments? You don't have to. It's actually more efficient if you write things down and send me emails and texts. Something in text is much easier to analyse and break down, and that's what I was doing before I came to YouTube. Because words that you can read are more subject to analysis than words you just hear. So, the problem, it seems, is that Brutus is cross with Millennial Woes for saying that a black person born in England who lived in England could be English. And basically Brutus is saying, if he could help it, he's going to kick out all the non-whites. And Millennial Woes is kind of getting it that he mustn't say these things because he's going to get done for hate speech if he does. I'm not saying Millennial Woes, wouldn't like to do that if he could. I don't know. One of the complaints of Brutus is that, Millennial Woes is saying two things. That on the one hand, a black man born in England could be English, but on the other hand, I actually don't know. So go and look at his video. I've posted my comments all over it, so you will have a pretty good idea of what I've been saying. So Millennial Woes basically wants it both ways, that he wants it to say what he said about the black person born in England being English, while saying a white person born in England is more English than the black person. And, are there, going to be birth certificates or residential, declarations that declare certain races more English than other races? Is this what it's going to boil down to? Or, you're just going to say we're all English, but, obviously, my race, my white race, for example, is more English than you because we were the original inhabitants, or whatever you're going to say about the thing. And then, even amongst white people, there will be arguments about, well, my people were here before your people, and then they'll say, what, are you Norman? Are you Viking? Are you, an original ancient Britain? That kind of thing. And really, it's really the Cornish and the Welsh who are kind of the really original, people of Britain, going back to when I guess the Romans invaded. But anyway, you're all, that's the thing. So one of the things I said was that English is not a race. White is a race under the IC police codes. So the police would say IC1 is white, IC2 is Mediterranean, IC3 is black, IC4 is brown, IC5 is yellow. So that's how they work it out, because, really a copper talking to one copper in another cop car is just going to go by appearances. And that's what, talking about race means that you're obsessed with, by appearances. And so Brutus has been talking about race and culture are different things. So yeah, you can see race just by looking at a person, but you can't see culture by looking at a person. Well, maybe you can. So if you, I'm talking about looking at people without their clothes, because obviously a lot of your culture can come in what you choose to wear. So if you wear a lounge suit, then a lot of things can be a lot of clues. So you're wearing a lounge suit, you're probably male, you probably have an office job, you have clients, you might be professional, you might be business, all sorts of things are said about you by the clothes that you wear. And therefore, that's why I'm talking about looking at people naked, but then you have naked people full of tattoos and piercings, and from that you can discern a kind of culture. So if you're a Yakuza, a Japanese gangster, you would be tattooed all over. Your entire body would be tattooed. But you might look at somebody naked without any tattoos, and you might think, well, they're probably an Orthodox Jew, because, Jews are not supposed to have tattoos at all. But then, but it's not conclusive, because, obviously there are some Jews who break the rule and do have tattoos and piercings. So, obviously everything requires a closer inquiry into, the actual in what they're claiming to be. So, it's not as easy, but, I know why racists are the way they are, because they like to think that just by looking at a person, you can work out whether they're good or bad from a distance. Before you see the whites of their eyes, you can shoot them down because they're not the same race as you. But you see, I see white working class male is posting, and that is your problem, white working class males, that you're not terribly educated, and so you just focus on these obvious visible signs, instead of working through the problem through history, through theology, philosophy, and politics. You just see the people you hate and you want to get rid of them, and that's all you get. So, yeah, you're good for cannon fodder because, the whole idea is that, the lower classes get recruited into cannon fodder to fight imperial wars, and they're, given instructions like, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes. And of course, different armies wear different uniforms. And this is how you identify the army, from a distance. So, just admit that you're not terribly educated, you aren't very good with words, you can't manipulate ideas very well in your heads, and you're always making category errors. And then you're going to be saying, category error? What's that? So a category error is when you mistake something that is similar. You either cannot see their similarity, or you say they're the same when they're not. So this is how it works. I got a strike last year, or was it the year before last, for saying that Hitler made a category error. I think you will be able to find it on Voice of Reason. And I was saying that Hitler got it wrong when he said only Jews debate in a certain dishonest way. And I'm saying it's not Jews who debate in that way. They all do. My mother does. And I mean the way in which you're talking to somebody, they appear to concede your point, they appear to agree with what you're saying, and lo and behold, they actually agree with you, but the next time you speak to them, it's like it never happened. It's like their memory bank was wiped clean. They don't seem to remember at all what you said to them, that you spoke for hours with them, and they just went back to what they were saying before they even had that argument that you're thinking of. So people like OV, they do it all the time, and OV is a LARPing Nazi. So these are people who, what they're doing, they're not obviously in any way honourable or intellectually honest. They're really about, OV, he LARPs as a Nazi, he has his toothbrush moustache, he has his swastika flag in the background when he streams. And, what is he doing? He's doing it as a kind of behavioural addiction. Because, what he does after his streams, I can tell you which will go to Fratelli di Europa. Go and subscribe to it, and then you can commune with your fellow anti-Semites and Islamophobes. And then after the stream, he'll delete it. So what's he done? And he would do it for hours, 17 hours. So you can, it's like a kind of neo-Nazi house party, I guess. But, what you have to understand is that he does it kind of, just to be with the people he likes. And anyone who questions him, who wins the argument, well, it's all wiped clean. And the next time he might even invite me on, we would have the same argument, and after that his memory bank would be wiped clean, and he won't remember or won't take on board anything of the points that he should have taken on board, or he even admitted to taking on board at the time. And okay, so he's doing it. He's streaming for a different purpose to me. He streams to LARP as a Nazi, and his identity is to LARP as a Nazi. He's a Nazi LARPer. He has no particular purpose with it. He's not a political activist. I am. I have a solution. I want it discussed. No one's prepared to discuss it. Why not? Probably because they don't like it. Obviously they don't like it. And they think they have it in their power to suppress my ideas. So it's all to do with abuse of power, which is what anti-Semites, Islamophobes, and racists of the alt-right complain about the political establishment. But what they do to others is the same as what their political establishment does to them. So, Millennial Woes, you think he's such a decent guy, but actually he can't face the truth. He can't face the truth about himself, his ideas. He doesn't want to be corrected. That is the thing. He doesn't want to be corrected. He doesn't want to admit that he is wrong. Now, if I was just talking nonsense and you have no idea what I was talking about, then of course he's entitled to ignore me, but I think he knows exactly what I'm saying. He gets it. He just doesn't want my message to be propagated on his platform. And the same for Mark Collett, who has fathered an illegitimate daughter. Talk about being morally compromised. But let me go back to the race and culture point that Brutus was talking about. So he's saying, I mean, what is he saying? He should just be able to sum it up in a sentence. So, okay, his stream is not too long. It's only an 11-minute video saying culture comes from race. Or something, it's like, no, culture comes from society. Society has many groups. You can have a multicultural society. But really, what we want to talk about is, well, originally it is about whether a black man can be English. And my position is that there is no law that says he can't be English. Clearly Brutus and people like him want to turn back time to when to be English was to be white. But things have changed. So, yeah, you can, in theory, turn back time. If you can invent your time machine, but I don't think, factory workers and the like can invent time machines. And factory workers and the like don't get themselves listened to because they don't have the moral authority to get themselves listened to. Because if you're considered to be low information, low status, you're not going to get yourself listened to. It's as simple as that. So what you need is somebody above you to speak on your behalf, to represent your interests. You don't get that because your political system is kaput. Why is it kaput? Because your religion is kaput. Because it doesn't matter whether you, how perfect your political system is in theory, if all you have are corrupt, cowardly, and hypocritical politicians, it's just not going to work. And why do you have corrupt, hypocritical, cowardly politicians? It's because your religion is kaput, and you won't admit it. You're now retreating into a position of saying absurdly that our magic white skin is going to save us from the vicissitudes of bad government and corrupt politicians. That's what you're saying. That's why you are infantile and insane, and why no one will ever listen to you. They can only take pity on you. And so that's why Jews and Muslims that's why Jews and Muslims are treated as higher status than you. And that's what you can't bear. You can't bear it. I know. And there's no way of you addressing the situation until you admit that Christianity is kaput. You need something to replace it. And there is only one obvious religion to do the job. And that's when you go running out of the room. And that's why Millennial Woes won't talk about it. You see, I've now... Oh, okay, I've got another viewer. It's hard to tell which... whether you I guess the ones... I think there was slightly more before. So do you go away because you think, I've heard it all before? But if you've heard it all before, then you can say, well, what about my solution of kicking everyone out? What about that one? Can't we do that? And I'm saying, no, you can't do that because okay, I'm happy to go along with your idea of kicking people out. I'm just saying, if you want to kick people out, you need to organise yourself. So all the pogroms you can think of, do you think they were done by the peasants complaining or by the government? You have to be in government to do that. Now, why do you think your government doesn't care about you, low status white male? Why don't they care about you? Because, all these classes were created for a reason. So you have, just call yourself working class if you want, but you no longer work. You become the welfare-claiming class because of your welfare state, which is something else you have to give up, and you don't want to talk about that either, do you? You don't want to talk about that. So all the solutions are basically unthinkable. And that's why you'll never get anywhere. Because, all these alt-right YouTubers that you subscribe to that say the same thing again and again on their all-agreed panelists who don't want to talk to me because they know they won't win the argument, they're just religious services, You know what Mark Collett does? It's patriotic, weekly, whatever he calls it, patriotic alternative. It's a religious service for anti-Semites, Islamophobes, and racists. You just all go there and pay him money. It's like this the collection tray at church. When you go, it just gets handed around, and you willingly dig in for the privilege of being in church, attending a service and singing a few hymns and hearing a few platitudinous homilies about how local politics is going to work, and give him money. Why is he allowed to exist with his super chats and not me, who's just got another strike? Because my ideas would work. So basically, Millennial Woes and Mark Collett are conspiring to suppress my ideas by not discussing them. Because, okay, I can think of two reasons. They don't want to upset their easily upset subscribers. But I'm not subscriber driven, am I? I say what I believe to be the truth, and I don't care if you can't, if you can never like it or support it. The truth is the truth, whether you like it or not. And that is a problem. If you are men who have turned into women, you're not going to fight for anything. You have basically turned yourself into a parasitic class, and nobody will want you because you serve no purpose. You are not even thinking of making yourselves productive, even in theory. You are not thinking of changing your ways because you won't admit that anything you have ever done was wrong. This is all in harmony with being someone suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. So, what can you do with an entire civilization suffering from narcissistic personality disorder and who won't change their ways? It can only be decline, death, and extinction. So we've got Christine Ramsey, who is Catholic and idolatrous, and you see, what these people do to me is merely withhold their cooperation. And this is the only stratagem that the lower classes can do. They can go on strike. And this is the stratagem of women too. They just refuse to cooperate. That's why they get passive aggressive. They say something nice in a nasty way so they can dissociate themselves from it. Because to be overtly critical would be too much risk on their part. So they'll never do anything beyond behaving in a passive-aggressive way, while in the meantime cucking to the matriarchy, as Millennial Woes is doing, and basically Mark Collett is doing. The morally compromised men. And these are your leaders, and that's why you will never succeed. And my plan is simply to get Jews and Muslims to support secular Quranism. And they will, eventually. It's only a matter of time. Because it is in their interests not to get pogromed, isn't it? Because of course they know that deep down what you really want to do is kill and kick them out. Currently, they don't think things are quite so bad that they need to talk about radical solutions such as mine. But since they won't address the problem, the underlying problem of the failed religion of the West and the failing political system of the West, things will only get worse. And the worse they get, the more attractive secular Quranism will be. So, all people like Catholic Christine can do is make predictions about me getting kicked out and saying my ideas aren't relevant to the UK, but be entirely unable to address the problem of failed Christianity, of kaput Christianity. And in the meantime, Brutus is saying that, yeah, I think I know what my Brutus is not getting it. He's not getting it because he thinks, ethno-nationalism and civic nationalism, they're just two buttons. Like, it's just as much effort to press one button than another button. But of course, Brutus doesn't understand, does he? Because, well, I don't know. I mean, he says he's middle class. He sounds like he could be middle class, but he's obviously missed out on all his career opportunities and works in a factory. So, oh yeah, and he went to India. So, and he is Hare Krishna. So, if that's not cupped, I don't know what it is. So he's basically saying he made no mistakes. He made no career mistakes. Maybe he should have studied harder at school and got a job worth having, so he can have a wife worth staying with, who will produce children. He's missed out on all these things. So now he works in a factory and lives with mum. And obviously he's unmarriageable. And this is the trouble with, a lot of you. I know that. And I'm not going to pretend that there's an instant solution, but the least you can do is think of the solution in theory before pressing the ethno-nationalist button and say, well, we'll just kick everyone out. Because nobody's going to take you seriously. Yeah, Pastor J, he's another one of you. Yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, Christianity is kaput. Yeah, but no, which is it today? No, Christine Ramsey, it's not about me moving out of here. It's me telling you what your problem is. And you're saying, we have no problems. Our problem is you, and the sooner we kick you out, the sooner our problems will be solved, right, Christine? Because in the end, all your answers to me is that you just watch it, bitch, or we'll kick you out. Yeah. And that's it. That's it. Even Catholic Christine Ramsey. No, it's not as simple as that. If I go, your Christianity is still kaput, Christine. So, I don't think you know of any movement at all that was led by a peasant. Oh yeah, that was Wat Tyler, but it didn't end well for him, did it? So, the question is Millennial Woes a civic nationalist? Yeah, but no, but yeah, but no. Does he think that he's ended the discussion by saying he won't talk about it? It's stupid. Yes, and Pastor J, he thinks he's got this great joke talking about restoring the matriarchy. But you see, frivolity is a sign of decadence, and Pastor J is admitting that he's decadent and frivolous, and that's why no one will listen to him. And no one will take him seriously, and this is why the alt-right is tarred with the same brush of never being taken seriously. Because the establishment know that you're just a bunch of peasants nobody wants to listen to. You're just a bunch of peasants who won't work. That's why they have warehoused you for extinction and want you to go gay. And that's why they want to replace you. But what is worse than that is that they don't even tell you what you have to do in order to stop all that immigration, which is to have more babies and bring them up properly. They don't even care enough to tell you what you should do. And of course you don't. I tell you, but you're not interested, are you? So, we're back to this. Oh, there are two buttons for us to press. Ethno-nationalism and civic nationalism. And you would be an idiot to press the civic nationalist button. But I'm putting it to you that if you look upon these destinations, these buttons as places on a map, you would have to acknowledge that you can only get to ethno-nationalism by going past civic nationalism. Because the most powerful form of ethno-nationalism is Judaism, which is divine nationalism. The divine nationalism practiced by God's chosen people. You really can't better that. Because, if I ask you, who is more powerful, which tribe is more ancient and powerful than Jews? Now the Jews, you wouldn't be able to answer. So really, Jews are the most ancient and powerful tribe. They are the aristocracy of humanity by dint of being the most ancient and powerful tribe in the world. And they're only what they are because of their religion. And of course, Judaism would be too hard for the morally degenerate who balk at the idea of even secular Quranism. So it is obvious that it would be too hard for you, and you can't go from 0 to 100 miles per hour in 1 second. You've got to, at least get into the car and put the key in and rev up the engine and, do whatever it is you need to do to get the car moving. You can't get into some vehicle and expect it to go, a light year immediately, which is what the infantilized alt-right think they can do, which is why nobody will ever take them seriously, except for their capacity to inflict violence, their obviously nursed desire to inflict violence and to kick out and kill people at the first opportunity they get. So why are they surprised that the government is increasing censorship? Not that I think that is the right way to go about it. I have the solutions, of course. I know how to deal with them. What is the British way of life, Christine? Sex and drugs and rock and roll, Asbo, Tesco, bingo, fatso, pedo. Is that the British way of life? Working in a charity shop, look, I think what I'm doing is charity. I'm not getting paid for this, not getting paid for this. So yeah, this is my charity work, just telling the truth to peasants, rancorous, potentially violent peasants who can't take it. So Millennial Woes, you're really, well, this stream is about you. It's directed to you. You can't make up your mind. Like a woman, you can't make up your mind. It is a woman's prerogative to change her mind, and this is the prerogative you are exercising, is it not, Millennial Woes? So have a bit of honesty and, grow up. Are you civic nationalist now? It's actually, okay, this is quite it. You will, actually I have evidence for it, because there was a time when Mark Collett, who has also exercised the prerogative of a woman to change his mind, he actually said something about civic nationalism, and he was saying, that's a way to go now. Actually, it was on my blog, and I can find it for you. It looks like I have to dig a bit deeper to find it, but I'll find it for you. You won't like this because it's hold on, I spelled his name wrong, didn't I? It's Collett with 2 T's. Just gonna correct it. And the other one, and then I can find you the one I'm looking for, when he said that civic nationalism is the way forward. But obviously he's changed his mind. We should ask him. Oh, maybe I should ask him why he's changed his mind. It would be useful if, it'll just be useful to everybody if he did that. Then I can get, more subscribers. Which is the objective way of showing influence and merit, I suppose. If there were justice in the world. I can't seem to find it. Must be one of the older ones. Okay, Mark Collett, formerly of the BNP, favours civic nationalism. 5,172 views. This was in 2013, so yeah, it's an old one, but he did say those things. And he says, if you're going down an ethno-nationalist route, you might as well start a drinking club, as you're not getting elected. If you're going after electoral power, you need to go down the civic route. And this he said in a Facebook group, which is no doubt deleted. Or I no longer have access to it. Let me just... Yep, sorry, this content isn't available at the moment. But yeah, I kind of, do record these things. And I'm going to post it in the chat for you. And in the comments as well. I'm a pretty good chronicler of nationalism, aren't I? And that's because I'm impartial. I note the more interesting things, I record them, and I use them later. To demonstrate the dishonesty and cowardice of so many of the leading lights. So, Christine Ramsey brings up bomb barriers around Christmas markets. Well, terrorism is a sign of people not being happy with your government's policies. Don't you know, Christine Ramsey? And obviously, being a peasant, you don't give a damn about neocon wars. And your government doesn't want you to know too much about neocon wars. You do know that neocon wars is about invading and bombing Muslim countries to steal their oil and then letting the Muslim refugees come into the West as cheap labour. But you don't care, Christine Ramsey. Do you think this is a workable, sustainable strategy of getting cheap labour by bombing Muslim countries and allowing Muslim refugees to come to your country as cheap labour? Does it make sense to you, Christine Ramsey? Yeah, I know you're middle class, Christine, but you might as well be a peasant the way you think. But you don't think, do you? You're not supposed to, I guess. I don't deny that there are middle class people in the alt-right. After all, Jen Schaaf is middle class. But the ones here, the others here, are just here to pander to you and aggrandize you by claiming to represent your interests. After all, the French Revolution was led by middle-class lawyers and, people like that, middle-class and educated. I think you are middle class by your background and your occupation. And yeah, you can rise and fall in one generation. But the point is that Western intellectuals are no longer fit for purpose, since they dare not discuss my ideas. So those who want to set themselves up as thought leaders in the alt-right, you would have thought that they would want to argue with me and win the argument, but they prefer to pretend that I don't exist. People like Millennial Woes and Mark Collins. But of course, all solutions are grounded in having to look without turning away at what is true and what is logical and what is moral. Because if it's not moral, it's only a short-term solution. And if it's not moral, you won't get the peace that you were hoping for anyway. And sadly, Millennial Woes and Mark Collins represent the moral rottenness of the West by refusing to either address the issues I raise, to discuss with me the important issues that I raise. That is because they don't want to have to admit that Christianity is kaput. They don't want to discuss why and how it is kaput, because they don't want to upset. They don't want to upset their feeble-minded subscribers who are infantilized men who can't deal with the truth without getting nasty. And they are, I suppose, they're not leaders of the alt-right, they're the nannies of men stuck in arrested adolescence. People who can't have a philosophical discussion about the purpose of religion, even the definition of words such as what is divine. They can't do it. Even those who did a bit of philosophy at university can't do it, because they're in denial. And I can only remind you again that men who become women, or worse than that, who become infantilized, don't deserve to live in a civilization. And this, I suppose, means that it will be taken over by the Jews, Muslims, and non-whites that they're always complaining about. Define bonkers, Christine Ramsey. Have I said anything untrue, illogical, or immoral? You know I haven't. You all have a vested interest in avoiding the truth, ignoring logic and morality. And that is why you will continue to fail. And the most recent ding-dong in the alt-right about whether it's possible for a black man born and living in England all his life To be English is, of course, the thing that is going to run and run. I'm not going to leave it alone. Thank you, Korean man who quotes Confucius, who said, if people are ruled by uniform laws and punished uniformly, they'll certainly try to avoid punishment, but will never develop a sense of shame. If, on the other hand, they're led by morally admirable people and encouraged by rules of good behaviour, they'll emulate their leaders, internalise a moral code, and gradually become good. Thank you, Korean man. And this is how I would approach it. A rule is more likely to be obeyed if it is also the law. The law is more likely to be obeyed if it is generally perceived to be moral. And a moral law is even more likely to be obeyed if it is believed or generally believed to come from the supreme and eternal Abrahamic God. And that is my argument for a theocracy. Tom Anderson, you're really a little dim. Secular Quranism is built on the rule of law, the rule of theocratic law. Yes, I'm aware, white working class male, that they are anti-Semites who are Muslim. There are plenty of them. That's why Labour is being accused of being anti-Semitic, because Labour are the ones with the greatest number of Muslim members. But then anti-Semitism is a fact of life. We know that because Jews are perceived to be the aristocracy of humanity, whether the anti-Semites who hate them formally acknowledge this or not, they will always get the blame when they are being misgoverned. So, this is another annoying thing about, anti-Semites who say, oh, but Jews, they have low IQ. And it's like, well, make up your mind. Are you the prey that these Jews, whom you call predators, are preying on? And if they are indeed the predators that you're always complaining of, and you the prey, then they are higher status than you because they're higher up on the food chain. It really is as simple as that. So you either admit it or you don't. So basically, if you hate Jews, you're basically blaming them for everything that you're suffering from, and you're suffering from bad government. And you blame Jews for your bad government because you're saying Jews run everything, including your government. So make up your mind. At least, even in your anti-Semitism, go by the logic of, what you're supposed to believe in. And I'm saying to you that even if you killed and kicked out all the Jews, your own elite will also kick you around and abuse you because your religion is kaput, and you really don't get that. What is the purpose of religion? It is to bind society, is to make the society that you live in, and this includes your nation, capable of working together, working efficiently, or at any rate more efficiently than other nations, other empires, other civilizations, if you want to remain top dog. And I'm afraid patriarchy is not allowing you to do that, and you won't talk about it. So it's only the liberal, assimilated Jews always complaining about anti-Semitism. And I do have a solution for them, and I'm saying you can't just be complaining about anti-Semitism. You have to accept that you will always be envied because of your status as God's chosen people. You'll be envied your success. People will gloat at your failure, of course, because they're anti-Semites and want bad things to happen to you, but when good things happen to you, they will envy you for it. So anti-Semitism is a fact of life, as old as the sin of envy. That's the deadly sin of envy. Now, I wanted to say something about legalism and Confucianism, and I do think this is something that the Chinese have resolved themselves, because I think that there's an article in the Khan Academy about legalism and Confucianism, and basically there was this joke, maybe it wasn't from that side, but there's this joke that those who pretend to be Confucianists are really legalists, because Confucianism sounds so much better, because it implies a kind of moral authority. But then I think we all philosophers all over the world need to know the purpose of morality and the part of religion, and I can explain it for them very simply. And of course I need more subscribers than the 85 I currently have on my secondary channel, and the and even more on my main channel, if they don't close it down because they don't like what I say. And what I say is actually quite useful to the Chinese too, in that, what I said about theocracy, in that, a rule is more likely to be obeyed if it is the law, and the law is more likely to be obeyed if it is generally agreed that it is a moral law, and a moral law is even more likely to be obeyed if it is generally believed to come from a divine source, i.e. the most powerful deity conceivable, which is the Abrahamic God. Now, what the Chinese had many, many centuries ago was the idea of the mandate of heaven. And it was around even before Confucius was around. And it's the idea that any emperor or king or ruler is deemed to have the mandate of heaven until it is withdrawn, and you can tell that it is being withdrawn if there are revolts, revolutions, and you get overthrown, obviously, and the other signs are famine and natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, and the like. So and in my stream with Kevin Barrett, he said that the mandate of heaven is being withdrawn from the American Empire. And it is, I'm sure, something to do with their promotion of the moral sewage that is globo homo. The other stream that I do also want you to watch, apart from me and Kevin, Dr. Kevin Barrett, and I, talking about, in which I explained to him secular Quranism, and he was, and I'm grateful to him, open-minded and even complimentary. The other one I want you to watch, and I urge you to watch it, is the debate between two Jews on nationalism. It's you should watch it, because it does tell you the contrast between these two men. The Bret Stephens is a liberal Jew and a neocon. And Yoram Hazony, who wrote The Virtue of Nationalism and has 9 children, is not neocon. And I really urge you to watch it. I've time-stamped it and put it on Voice of Reason and The Radicalized Rabbi, and I think it would reward you to watch it maybe more than once for some of you. I think I need to watch it more than once. Tom Anderson has the wrong idea about legalism. Legalism is basically... Okay, the difference between Jews and Chinese, I think it's important because they feel themselves in competition with each other. So Jews would say, well, Chinese have been around for about the same time as we have, about 6,000 years or something, and the Chinese are, but they have some of the university departments have a Department of Jewish Studies, and I think you'll know that the Chinese are always thinking of ways of improving their government. They actually call it statecraft. And I think the saving grace of the Chinese, I mean, okay, they have suffered collectively, is that the Chinese knew what they were when they were united by the first emperor, which is Emperor Qin. So there were the warring kingdoms. This is part of Chinese literature. I don't pretend to have read it, but this is what I can discern from the little that I know, is that, that there were, these warring kingdoms, and it was a Qin kingdom who united all of China by winning wars against them all, and that was when China became an empire, and then it had to think of itself in a different way. And you may know that the first emperor burnt all those books because he didn't want all these different Chinese bits and pieces of land having a different language. He wanted to unite China. He didn't want, so there was a compromise in that. He said, you just have to read the same text. Obviously I can't make you all read, pronounce the words that I am saying. You now have to read to be Chinese. In the same way, you all have your regional dialects, and you will all be pronouncing these words in a different way, but you have to read it. You will have to use the same text. And that worked. So when you know that you're an empire, you hold yourself in a different way. It's like when a child becomes an adolescent, becomes an adult, like, coming of age ceremonies, bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, they have these things. The Romans had it. Roman boys had a coming of age ceremony, so the boy knew that he was expected to behave in a different way after his coming of age ceremony, and this is what Jewish boys kind of know when they have their bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah rather. And I guess that there was no particular point doing it for girls, because basically girls were told, the moment they started having their period, that, well, you could get knocked up, girl, so watch it. And that's basically all they needed to know in practical, for the practical purposes of their parents. But what is becoming a man? I guess, in the degenerate, low status, low class, low information people of the West, they think it's when they screw their first slut, right? That's your coming of age. And you think you're so clever if you manage to do it below the age of consent. Then you're even prouder of yourselves that you got there quicker and sooner than the others in the slut fucking stakes. And so this is where the moral corruption comes from, because moral corruption is a consequence of sexual corruption. And once you're morally corrupted, you will become intellectually corrupted, because you won't be accepting a whole bunch of things that say that you've been immoral. You'll say, it hasn't hurt me yet. I'm still around, aren't I? I'm still having a good time fucking sluts in my 50s. Well into my 50s. Sluts will still fuck me, so I'm all right. Jack. I done nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm all right. Even though all I ever do is white flight from London and whinge about Muslims. So, and the problem of intellectual corruption, I'm afraid, is the inability to use truth, logic and morality to solve and avoid problems. So, and that is basically denial or insanity or even dementia, and you're all suffering from it, and you won't admit it, and you won't talk to me or with each other about it. As for me, my role is simply to tell you what's wrong with you. I don't expect to lead a revolution, start a revolution, or anything like that. My job is just basically to tell you what's what, who's who, and, how far the mighty have fallen. And what is your job? To deny what I say, of course, to pretend you didn't hear, to go into a kind of catatonic state when, one day you might say yeah, and the next day you'll say no, and the next day you'll say yeah, but no, but yeah, but no. I'm basically talking to inmates in a lunatic asylum. I already know that. And, of course, I remind you again that lunatics, morally corrupted lunatics suffering from dementia don't deserve to live in a civilization. Korean man says, in Taoist Confucian China, no one is really separate. The government is part of the family, and the courts are part of the government, and nobody's under any illusion that they're independent. Yes, of course, because, we are part of society, whether we want it or not. And, do we really want to live in a log cabin in the mountains somewhere? Do we think that we can survive on our own in our farm, even if we left the city and moved to it, if some disaster befalls the city and the citizens of the city leave a destroyed city to find food and shelter in other parts and come to your farm and maybe raid it and take it over? Do you think you can survive on your own without the protection of the state. So yeah, we all have an interest in politics, in how the government treats us. We don't really have the option of opting out if we want the benefits of any civilization at all. And the people who don't, who seem to think that they can get away with stuff, are people like Uncle Phil, whose accounts he tells me has been deleted, and that's because he's some kind of religious fanatic who keeps reading the Bible as if, because it gives him comfort. I know Judas does that as well, but it won't. There's no point reading any prayer or whatever if you don't get what it is you're supposed to do. Christine Ramsey, what does my having children to do with what I'm saying? What I say either makes sense in their own right, whether I have children or not is neither here nor there. You seem to understand what I'm saying because you disagree with it. So, I am making sense, even to you, Christine. Korean man says Mao is commonly seen as analogous to Qin Shi Huang in China, from his quasi-legalism to his unification of modern China. When Mao died, people went to Tiananmen cheering Qin Shi Huang has died. Well, the crowning achievement of Mao is really the one-party state. So whatever horrors communism visited on the Chinese, what it left behind that was good is the one-party state. And that is why China is being more rationally governed now than it was last century. The other competing empire would be the Persian Empire, Iran. Iran may not be as big as China, but its people are, they're quite attractive people, really, and they are an ancient race too. Not as ancient as the Jews, but still quite ancient, fought with the Greeks and all that, and they run their empire according to Sharia, which they often too liberally interpret. But I often wonder how powerful China would be if it adopted secular Quranism. And I think out of all the countries in the world, they likely to do it is I think the Chinese would be more prepared to do it than any other. Simply because, what Westerners never give the Chinese credit for was that the Communist Party of China actually dumped communism during the time of Deng Xiaoping. That was what they did. They tried out capitalism as a pilot scheme. I think it was Shanghai they tried it at. It worked in that the Shanghainese loved the little of private enterprise they were allowed, and then the Chinese adopted it in other countries, in other parts of China, I mean. So it wasn't sort of done in a chaotic way, it was done in a controlled experiment. So China has the rules that allows it the flexibility to change things, and this is what it did. I mean, obviously, all its pre-communist history and wisdom has not been completely thrown out by the Chinese. But I guess if the Chinese adopted secular Quranism, they would. Will they have a caliph? I mean, would Xi, if he did adopt secular Quranism, yeah, I think he would be a kind of caliph, and then when he goes, they can elect themselves another caliph from their Politburo standing committee. Actually, I have to work out which one is the one with the highest bit. I'm sure Korean man knows this off the top of his head anyway. Let me just check if he does. Oh, I can't seem to find it on the Wikipedia thing. Yeah, Politburo Standing Committee, and it has... Yeah, Politburo Standing Committee, PSC, is a committee consisting of the top leadership of the Communist Party of China. Historically, it has been composed of 5 to 11 members. Note the odd numbers of its membership composition, and currently has 7 members. Yeah. Now I'll go back to answering your questions. So Tom Anderson, I don't know where you get your shit from, but he says, societies that are ruled by courts are a sign of a spiritually dead people. What are you, Tom Anderson, a Christian? What is your religion, Tom Anderson? Somebody ask him what his damned religion is. Browbeating people into submission, Tom Anderson says, leads to what you see in Muslim nations, which is poverty, anti-intellectualism, and people who are given to engaging in acts of extreme violence. Which Muslim country are you talking about, and which event of extreme violence are you talking about that is not caused by neoconservatism, Tom Anderson? And what are you talking about when you mean browbeating Are you saying that I'm browbeating you? I'm merely pointing to truth, logic, and morality, and if you think there's something wrong in the facts that I rely on, please point it out. Or can't you? And if you can't, then you've lost the argument, so why don't you submit? So, Korean man, I don't know what you mean by a modern form of legalism, and that turned out to be more degenerative than anything else. Christine Ramsey, I don't know. I don't mind who tries it out first. I mean, obviously, my preferred the preferred location for the pilot scheme, that is secular Quranism, would be Britain, because I live here. But anyone else want to try it out? Like, Israel, I'm not going to complain. And, if Israel, you see, the thing is, if the Israelis tried it, then everybody would sit up and think, wow, what's happening? And all its Muslim neighbors would be saying, wow, are they really implementing Sharia law? Is it even Sharia law? Are they going to do it better than us? Are these Jews going to implement Sharia better than us Muslims? Oh my God, they'll be saying to each other. Of course, I paraphrase. That's an interesting statistic, Korean man. 84% of Chinese trust their government. That's great. 70% of Singaporeans trust their government. 46% of Canadians trust their government. I'm surprised at Canada. I thought they all hated their government. But then I guess, people like the people I met online are not representative of Canadians. 45% of South Koreans trust the government. 44% in Russia trust their government. 43% in Germany. 37% in Japan. That's pretty bad in Japan. 33% in USA. UK is 36%. So pretty bad, pretty bad. What do you want me to say about war with Iran? I mean, I can only say I don't want it. And then the little bit of news that I listened today was about Trump withdrawing American troops from Iraq. And I thought, is that a clever plan, that to withdraw troops from Iraq? Is Trump being really clever in that he's kind of pretending to do what the neocon wants, but actually he is withdrawing American troops from Iraq as part of his plan? I don't even know. I don't even know what he's doing. And I don't presume to have the inside information, so I can only, wait for the dust to settle before I even think of commenting on it. I know you have, instant commentary, and I would urge you to subscribe to the Duran if you're interested in foreign policy analysis. No, I don't have shares in Wikipedia. I just use Wikipedia because I guess it is the most authoritative source that comes to mind when I'm talking about anything that needs reference to a higher authority than me. Tom Anderson, you can post links in the comments under the video. I know you can't do it while it's still live, but all you can. I would actually like people to do that, because the live chat is not kept forever. So if you want a more permanent memory of your presence on my streams, please come back later and post all the links you feel you want to post under the video, and then it'll stay for more than a few months. I really don't know that much about the geopolitics and the military hardware that Iran and America have. And obviously I'm hoping it doesn't happen, because it will inconvenience us all. So, okay, my preferred scenario is that Trump tricked the neocons into somehow getting the Iraqis to be so mad at America that they demand American troops be withdrawn, and then they are withdrawn, and then they'll be back in America, which is kind of what you guys wanted, right? Tom Anderson asked, do you think war with Iran is... I hope not. I hope that Trump is doing his really clever thing about tricking the neocons into getting him to withdraw American troops from Iraq, so they can go and sort out all his enemies. Yeah, maybe all that bluster was about tricking the neocons into into having to allow Trump to withdraw troops from Iraq. It's pretty clever. Okay, so this is what I think Trump has done. And I'm really happy, obviously I don't want to feel that I supported a warmonger. I kind of feel bad. My mother hates Trump. And, when I was discussing it with her, she was saying, well, how much she hated him. And I said, well, how can you defend him? And I was basically saying, well, most Americans don't care about what America does in their name. They only care about what's on their mind. They hated immigration, and Trump basically told them that he was going to help them. What else would you do if you were an American who hated immigration? All right, Tom, I'll rent you. But this is not really the place to discuss the minutiae of war games. Okay, I'm going to look up what it says now in the news about US withdrawing troops Iraq. I mean, I just feel that it's so pointless commenting on these things, because you don't even know that, what you first heard was what is confusing. All I can read is, top general says letter suggesting US would withdraw troops from Iraq was a mistake. Confusion over letter from US military site signalling withdrawal of troops from Iraq. US general says letter suggesting... I don't know. Okay, but enough of the waters have been muddied into hopefully enough Americans saying, yeah, why don't we withdraw our troops from Iraq? Come on. Yeah, we got to bring them back and use them to sort out their liberals, right? Anyway, do listen to what the Durans say. I actually don't know that much, so don't take anything I say on the stuff. I haven't even read the news. Okay. It's like the Americans don't want another war, and then they'll say, come on, President Trump, you said no more foreign wars, so withdraw the troops, bring our boys home. What if I'm right, huh? What if I'm right? This is a bit of a rambling one, isn't it? I actually do have things to do, so I have to go now. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to get the basics of our ideology right, even if we're ethno-nationalists. And I just don't think people care too much about the definitions of particular words. So, if you're going to be an ethno-nationalist saying you want to kick out all non-whites, you have to say it. And then you'll get done. Your channel will go down for hate speech and whatever. But that's what you believe. So obviously, Millennial Woes is even though he says he treats his channel as if it were already gone. He's such a woman. He'll be not really believing in it, and but sort of patting it in a kind of womanish way and protecting it and swaddling it like it were his baby and that sort of thing, and using keep popping up for AMA so he can collect the super chat. So not really. And I guess if I were the deep state, I would let him carry on, because I know he is worse than useless. And that's why he won't talk to me. He won't discuss real ideas, whether he's been instructed by it, or if he's too cowardly to do that. Well, it's just he's not man enough, and he admits to not being man enough. Him with his regular pleas for donations so he can afford a therapist and shit like that, and wearing a shawl. Yeah, I think when he was wearing that thing, said, well, why are you wearing a towel? Oh, it's a shawl. And I thought, a shawl, it's for girls, isn't it? Wear a fucking jumper like a man. But no, he wears a shawl. So I looked up shawls, and yeah, you can sort of see men in shawls, but they're Indian. Yeah, so let's talk about shawls. And anyway, a shawl would only work if your country is sort of moderately cold. It just wouldn't work for Eskimos, Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't really want to. I don't have the knowledge to talk about the war situation, because it's changing from minute to minute, and you're not even sure whether the letter saying that the Americans. I mean, obviously there's some sort of disagreement. It's like there's some part of the one part of the American establishment saying let's bring them home, bring our boys home, and there's another one, the neocons saying, no, keep them there and bomb them. So, we'll see. But, yeah, talking about war, your male ancestors really had to fight wars and disgracefully, white men now can't even face facts without retreating into denial and infantilism. Or discussing the proper meaning of words in a philosophical way. You just can't do it because you no longer have the ability, I suppose, because your sexual corruption has led to your moral corruption, and your moral corruption has led to your intellectual corruption, and your intellectual corruption has led to all of you suffering from the dementia that is narcissistic personality disorder. And this means you can't use truth, logic, and morality to solve and avoid problems and form obvious conclusions to the undisputed facts about what is going around you. And when confronted with it, you go into denial. So, that's your problem, and you don't deserve a civilization. Sorry, I'm just here to, point these things out to you, and, it's not my problem that you can't take it, if you're no longer men, but just arrested adolescents in adult male bodies. So thank you for all for listening. Oh my god, I've been talking for 2 hours.